Justin, hi, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am well, thank you. How are you?
Really good. A lot of energy this week. Busy, but in a busy way, like good way, right? So cannot complain.
And we
Um,
have blue skies for the first time in a very long time.
we do exactly as I was telling you. Cannot complain when it's sunny here in New York. You're in Connecticut, right?
Yep. So we have about the same color blue skies, which after a few months of being in gray weather is
Mhm.
very nice to see.
Yeah, we deserve that. That's what I would say. Like, we deserve that. That is the minimum that we can ask, right? But thank you so much for joining on this episode. And usually what I usually do it is that I ask a bit more about yourself, your career, and what you're up to lately, so that the audience can understand a bit more. And then we're gonna dive in into this topic that's really gonna be focused on B2B influencer marketing. But first of all, who is Justin?
So I've spent about the past 15 years of my career focused in B2B marketing, social media, and early days of influencer marketing. And over those 15 years, I've had the opportunity to work with Fortune 500s, work at and consult with them. I speak at a number of industry conferences. I've written a couple books on the topic. And, my goal has been throughout the years to prove that B2B social media can be as effective and as interesting as B2C social media has been. So bringing those ideas to B2B marketing and prove that social media doesn't have to be boring.
It makes sense, right? Because again, it's easy, right, to envision B2C with like, a pair of shoes on social media, right?
Yeah.
Or a makeup product. When it comes to B2B, yeah, a lot of the people are either thinking about something boring, corporate, and, like in a box, right? You cannot do
Yeah.
much more. But actually, we're seeing that you can do a lot of really interesting and cool things, right? Even in the B2B, right? So let's jump into that. Like, let's start talking about, first of all, why is it important nowadays, and why it can be so powerful, again, using B2B in the influencer marketing environment.
Sure. So one of the big differences, of course, when you look at B2C and B2B is B2C, you're only appealing to one or maybe two people, right? It might be the household or it just might be that one individual. When you start to look at B2B, now you're looking at a bigger buyer committee, right? That might be 5, 7, 10 people, depending on the company and the size of that committee. Take that and you also consider the fact that we don't trust as individuals, we don't trust companies any
Hmm.
longer. We trust other people. And that's where influencer marketing steps in, is that we're willing to buy from people that we trust, or understand that if they're aligned with that company that they're promoting or sharing content on behalf, that we as a consumer should have an aligned trust with them as well, right? So if you're working with a company and I trust you and we've developed a relationship because I consume your content on a regular basis, I'm going to already have a built-in trust because I know that you wouldn't align yourself and your values with a company that was just paying you essentially to be a shill for them. So that's where B2B influencer marketing has really stepped in and continued to grow into being a multi-billion-dollar kind of line item these days. I've been doing it for 10 plus years before it was called influencer marketing.
Hmm.
But nowadays, you do see full-time positions within companies. You see very dedicated line items and budgets. When you look at any of the kind of state of marketing reports that come out, you do see influencer marketing being one of those first usual top 3 investment areas for companies. So it's really important for companies nowadays to understand how to take advantage of influencer marketing and how to rightly involve themselves.
Hmm. No, absolutely. Like, first of all, when you say that, more companies are using influencer marketing budgets, we also been seeing like, shifting from a nice to have to a must
Yes.
have, right? It's
Yep.
part of the of the deal nowadays. Before it was like, let's test it out, and then it moved to, okay, this actually works. We can actually track ROI, and now it's a big part. Certain companies spend up to like 80% of their budget. Some others are still like more conservative, but yeah, it's here to stay, and actually showing that it's not just anymore, again, a nice to have, but
Yep.
it's a big part of that. And also, like when you say about the people behind the businesses, because what I say personal all the time, B2B is still a person that is talking with another person, right? So
Yep.
when you realize that on the other side could be even maybe a corporation, but there is still a person with feelings, right? What I say all the time, like that person maybe is a father of 3 kids, right, with their own
Yep.
problems. So if you go on the personal level, again, you're not the company speaking; it's a person that is doing that.
Yeah, it's not two logos talking to one another.
Yeah. Exactly, right. So and so, like, based on that, right, so we said that it's powerful, it's important. What are, in your opinion, some of the best ways for organizations, right, to use social media and influencer campaigns? Too many times, some brands really failed on delivering because they think that they want to use, right, a certain tone of voice that is not what you should use on social media. So in your opinion, what works and what doesn't?
At the end of the day, no matter what campaign you decide to use, if it's paid, if it's organic, if it's social, influencer, anything, it has to be authentic,
Hmm.
right? It has to be authentic to who you are as a brand, who your community is on social, and authentic to the influencers that you align yourself with. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to authenticity, because your consumer, your prospect, your community will see right through that if you're not being true to your voice as a company, and or if the influencers that you work with aren't being true to themselves.
Yeah, it does make sense. I mean, like, and we have seen it for the B2C and even more in the B2B, right? You want an authority, right? Someone that you can trust,
Yep.
and someone that is gonna show you, especially when it comes to technicality, right, of a product in the B2B is
Yes.
even more important, right, than on the B2C. Because maybe for, again, for a pair of shoes, yeah, you do care about the quality, but when it comes to, for example, a software, you're gonna really
Yes.
go down, right, in the details about the features that I can get, how many seats I can, like, and that is for mostly software, but the same could be for medical devices, for example, and there are so like more technicality involved, right? So that's why also I think it is important to, again, as you said, be authentic and really go in depth, right, when possible, because at the end of the day, people are interested in also knowing your personal experience, right, with something. So and I also wanted to ask you this, like um you know in the past years, we finally moved away from only looking at numbers, right? Like this influencer, right, has 1 million of followers,
Yeah.
therefore I'm going to use that person. And finally, we saw that, you can actually use micro influencers or mediums and the others. In the B2B space, have you seen something working better than others? Like, is it micro influencers better than macro? It depends. What is your take on that?
I do think it depends. Certainly, unless you're, a Fortune 5 or Fortune 10 type company, you're not going to work with celebrities. And
Hmm.
at that level, you're essentially paying for reach.
Yeah.
But at the macro, micro, niche kind of ranges, I think that the best solution is usually a kind of layered approach, right? If you're working on a B2B marketing campaign, say a launch of some kind or something of that nature, working with some that at the macro level that have broad influence, maybe across the whole industry, all across all of B2B marketing, for example, will help get you the broad reach and get into those larger communities. But working, like you said, with a niche influencer or a micro influencer will help you penetrate those audiences that are very specific to whatever your topic or expertise is in, with what you're trying to sell. So at Demand Base, for example, I've run ABM influencer campaigns in the past, and there are several individuals that have micro communities that really are focused on ABM. Either they have that title at work, they might be demand gen or something of that nature, but they
Hmm.
work with ABM campaigns and activities. And so to identify those influencers and work with them, that has a huge impact. Now, we have also worked on other campaigns where awareness was the goal. So we will work with macro influencers to help bring that larger voice.
Hey, quick break. This podcast is hosted by the Influencer Marketing Factory. We are an influencer marketing agency that helps brands and companies engage with Gen Z and millennials on social media. We take care of influencer identification, storytelling, creativity, negotiation, contracting, campaign management, ROI analysis, in-depth reporting, content boosting, and much, much more. Are you interested in learning more? You can find us at theinfluencermarketingfactory.com, or you can Google the Influencer Marketing Factory. Mm-hmm. And let's go a bit more in detail when you were just now telling us about finding them, right? So first of all, there is a big thing, right? Like, how do we actually find them? And two, how do you start the conversation, right? Because with B2C, it's something, but with B2B, again, it's even more narrowed. So what is the best way to actually even get started?
Sure. So with identifying influencers, I think you really have one of two ways.
Mm-hmm.
One's very painful and one's a little easier. So in B2B, the influencers in your audience are more than likely going to live on LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
more so than Twitter, or, TikTok or Facebook or what have you. Because of LinkedIn's API, you really do have two ways. One, if you have an influencer software, they can pull some data, so you can create some complex searches with them to pull follower numbers, position within a company, size of company, things of that nature. Or if you don't have that software or you're trying to verify that data, then it is manual searches within LinkedIn to identify those individuals. So if you're looking for VPs and above in market and operations roles, that's going to be a manual search to identify those people. And while that is manual, it actually, in my opinion, is one of the better ways to verify level of influence, because influence isn't just based on raw numbers, right? So you can have 100,000 followers, and if you have no conversations or you're not engaged, you're not influential. That 100,000 came from who knows where, but if you have 1,000 followers and they're really engaged and you're engaged with your community and it's topical and it's a mix of, that topical area and personal, and, you can understand that person's really influential in that area or with their audience, they're by far more impactful than that person with 100,000 followers that has no engagement and doesn't post relevant content. So, again, software or manual searches, verification if you are using the software. But then to start the conversation, hopefully, in most ideal scenarios, you either have talked to them in the past or you have mutual connections that can make those introductions, right? So warm connections are always the better ones. In the instances that you don't, I've executed very successful campaigns that built relationships based using InMail on LinkedIn. It's just knowing how to approach those individuals and, not pitch slapping them like we see a lot, like with,
Every day.
other areas in sales, will happen. You accept a friend connection request and you immediately, get when can we set up a call type, but it's explaining yourself and hooking them and helping them to understand why you're reaching out to them. So that's how probably the two ways to identify the influencers, and then probably the three ways to engage with them, because you either have their direct information already, you go through a warm outreach, or if cold, then you're reaching out through InMail or something like that.
Absolutely. No, yeah, I love when you say about doing the manual check. Personally, what I do, I go and I click on all activity on someone profile. You can see their posts, comments, reactions, articles, right? That it already gives you, right, an idea of their engagement. And usually what I've been doing also lately, I check if they have a newsletter, since LinkedIn is pushing them a lot. And I'm thinking like in the B2B, you can ask them, for example, to place, for example, maybe a native advertisement in their LinkedIn newsletter that people also get pushed to their email.
Yep.
So, like a little bit of like this work, right? I do agree with you. You can have so many followers on LinkedIn, but maybe you got them because of a viral, for example, LinkedIn post. But these people
Yep.
maybe are, from all over the world and not really targeted to you. And in time, maybe you diluted all that engagement in time, and now maybe you have only 10 likes per post, right? So,
Yep.
well,
Or
what's the
sometimes
point?
it can be position in at certain named company, right?
Yeah,
So if you're CMO or CEO or something at a very well-known company, it doesn't matter in some ways what you may or may not be doing on LinkedIn
yeah,
because of name recognition
of
and
course.
brand recognition, right? So people want to follow you, they want to be engaged with you. It means something to them that you connect with them.
Hmm.
But as far as influence, they have none beyond being a name.
Totally. It's like what I say all the time, like Cristiano Ronaldo, you follow just because it's him, right? You don't really care necessarily are gonna buy like some people are gonna buy their shoes and everything, like, because you want to have this inspiration. But sometimes you follow celebrities, and it could happen also the same in the B2B space, just because of their connection, right? And you want to follow them and read something about them. But I'm pretty sure that then at the end of the day, you most probably won't really click on a link or subscribe to something, right? Because they are telling you to do so. So I
Yep.
think that there is some sort of like analogy there between the B2C and B2B. And let me also ask you this: do you think that also, like, what is the best way there to go? Have you seen one shot activities like short term, or do you think in the B2B is it better to go on a long term with the like the time that you identify the right people? What is the best way to go? And if it is long term, what are some in the incentive or best way to really from day one be like, what, we're gonna go on a sort of brand ambassador here type of thing, and for maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, something like that.
I think that your goal should always be to develop long-term
Yeah.
relationships with the influencers that you work with. However, you do likely build short-term campaigns, right? We're executing this brand launch, this product launch, we have this conference, whatever that may be, but it's a short-term campaign. That might be a certain number of videos or a certain over a period of time that you'll work with that influencer. But your goal should always be to develop a longer term relationship with them. Some of the ways that you can do that is too many brands see influencer marketing as a one-way street. So how can me as the brand benefit from you,
Hmm.
as opposed to how can you help us? Sure, but now how can we help you use our voice or our resources to exponentially increase your reach with our audience? So that's always one step, right? Brand influencers realize that. What brands are they working with that basically are taking advantage of them, or are actually helping them and working together with them and bringing their resources to bear? But then there's other things that you can do. Send in a handwritten thank you card after a campaign. You know that it's their birthday, or you see that they got a promotion, or they published a book. Anything, send in holiday gifts, any little touch points that you can do along the way just helps. These little reinforcements help. And then going back to them and reusing them multiple times, right? It doesn't have to be something big. We've used an influencer to create a 3-minute TikTok for us or whatever it was, but he did it for us, right? It was like a last second idea. Reached out to him, said, "Hey, listen, we'll toss you a few dollars if you don't mind creating this for us," and he did. But that's another touch point. And then we've gone on to work with him on longer term projects that are 2, 3, 4 quarters long now.
And now that you say about doing something like some little nice touch things like, to people. It reminds me that I was on your LinkedIn and I saw a photo. Was it like some macarons or something like that, right? And it was like
Yep.
gifting. Do you find like working well? And if so, like how do you usually approach like the gifting side for the B2B?
Sure. So using gifting is something that I wholeheartedly believe in and I use very often. You see the use of gifting most often on the sales side of
Hmm.
companies or in customer marketing. So on the sales side, it might be in prospecting. SDR or an AE may see that their customer, their prospective customer has moved company, so they may, send them a thank you bottle of wine or something of that nature. They may show that they are engaged through one way or another. Customer marketing, it may be, gift cards to generate G2 reviews or, other things on other review sites. But to your point, something that I don't see happen often enough, and it may. Of course, I don't know. I don't see everything that every company and every influencer is doing, but I don't hear talked about enough, at least, is the use of gifting platforms when it comes to influencer marketing and communities, private communities. So, like I mentioned, you can supply a small gift to your influencers after you work with them. I tend to, like you said, it's like macarons in the example that you're talking
Hmm.
about. Send some small gift, maybe some chocolate or something of that nature. I'll also work on kind of the reverse program or the reverse of that. If we're working with an author, then we'll buy so many copies of their book and send them out
Hmm.
through whether that's our social community or that's within the private community that I manage on our behalf, or to our employees or something like that to help drive their book sales and consumption of their book. But also within our private community that I run for VPs and above in sales or marketing roles, this was the other thing that you were referring to. I send gifts, be they gift cards of different things or gifts, actual physical gifts as holiday, to those that are most engaged in our community, or as random acts of kindness, and this applies to influencers as well. There doesn't need to be a reason, and this goes to the kind of building a long-term relationship with them. There are those natural touch points after a campaign, maybe for the holidays, birthday, job change, some of those major life events or points in the year. But I've certainly just been sitting there at times and been, oh, I have 30 minutes now before my next meeting. Let me just send out some things to individuals as thank yous. So um, I find it very helpful. I do think that it has to be a balance of tactile,
Hmm.
things, bottle of wine,
Yeah.
sweets, books, whatever that is, as well as, gift cards or what have you. I just did a surprise and delight of in our community. I'd asked what people's favorite toppings were on their burgers, and people ran away with it. And so then I surprised everyone that had answered with gift cards to Uber Eats / DoorDash to go get a burger with their favorite toppings.
Love this.
Like it just drives additional goodwill on behalf of the brand.
I absolutely love this. You're totally right. Like, especially in the influencer marketing B2C, gifting has been always a thing. It's still
Yep.
something, but of course, nowadays influencers prefer, right, to get cash on, right? Because, because of I get it, like, they're doing work and everything, right? Doesn't make sense. But you're totally right. Gifting is mostly either prospecting or with the idea of like, maybe they're going to take a picture of these or a little story,
Yep.
right? And post it. But yeah, there is not enough about like what it happens after, right? Too many times I can see that people do their thing, then part ways, and then they have to start new relationship. While I mean, at the end of the day, again, like what I say all the time, human beings love like basic things, right? And some of them is like receiving a gift that you were not expecting, or even just
Yep.
like a little handwritten card saying like thank you. So
Yep.
I love that you're doing that, and I can see why it's successful. Not that many people spend the time to do that. They think there is like something extra, but actually I do believe that it's one of the most important things, right? To really keep them connected on the long term with people. So and
Absolutely.
and you know what, before actually jumping more on the tracking and like ROI and so on, and we're gonna go more even more in detail about case studies and so on, I forgot to ask you something about LinkedIn before. You guys had we have now 52,000,
Yep.
right? If I'm correct, 52,000, almost like 51 something like, but all 52,000. Okay, by the time that it's gonna go live, it's gonna be even more than that, followers on LinkedIn.
Yep.
And how did you achieve like such a great results? And like, and what do you usually post? Is like a mix of informative, something
Mhm.
fun? Like, how are you managing your LinkedIn page?
Yep. So I have to give credit where credit is due. Caitlin Doyle and Kiera Currit on our team are amazing social team. But one of the things that we did over the past really year, maybe year and a half, is start to analyze every single post that we send, the time of day, the engagement rate on it, and the type of post. Was it
Yeah.
all text? Did it have image in it? Did it have video? Everything you can imagine, really down to the detailed level, because we wanted to understand what our community was engaged with, and not just from the, oh, look at this posted really well, it had 100 likes,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. There's just the kind of look in, kind of back of the napkin test is always good and needed. But we started to really watch what was performing well, and then the things that performed well, of course, you do more of, right?
Yeah.
But also taking advantage of everything that LinkedIn offers you. So, as an example, about a year and a half ago or so, we decided to test out LinkedIn carousels.
Mm-hmm.
And we use an analogy that our CMO has, and we broke it down into a series of four slides, I think, or something of that nature. And we saw that it had a 5 to 6 x more engagement than any other post that we had.
Hmm.
That was a sign.
Yeah.
So now we produce them regularly. If you look once a week, once every other week, we have another carousel. And it is always based on something that is a number of some kind, an acronym, or in terms of things like uh, top lists, or showcasing certain people. If it's Pride Month or International Women's Day or month, things of that nature, highlighting impactful people. So we start to use carousels. We start to take advantage of video. So short social clips. Every video that we post has a short clip to it that also has closed captioning on it,
Mm-hmm.
because the vast majority of us, as we scroll our phones, we may be sitting on the couch watching TV at night, and you're not going to turn on the sound.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to still kind of catch them and cause them to stop and look at the video. Maybe you save it and you engage, or you click the link and you go to our streaming network and go save that to watch later. So we paid attention to these metrics, and what was hidden, what wasn't. When we tried this type of creative, did that work? Nope, that didn't work. Let's scrap it and maybe invert the colors and see if that hit. And over a year and change, we grew our followers about 3x,
Wow.
while maintaining our engagement rate, which is about 3x what LinkedIn states is a good engagement rate for company pages. And while we were doing that, that was something that our team watched very carefully, that kind of EQ on that. It's great to grow your followers, but if your engagement tanks, it doesn't matter, right? It's kind of the influencer piece that we're just talking about. I would rather 10,000 followers and high engagement than 100,000 and no engagement, right? So, but our engagement held exactly the same, if not grew, while our followers were sharply increasing.
Wow. First of all, congrats on that. I know that, especially with the algorithm changes on LinkedIn, like, might be a bit tricky sometimes. But since you said that, like, you exported everything, analyzed everything, I can see that you guys are really onto tracking and analytics, right? And so something I wanted to ask you is also that, for too many years, people doing influencer marketing they were not tracking properly. And what I say all the time it is that if you're putting $1 in, but you don't know where this is going and what is like resulting in, it's like burning money, right?
Yeah.
So tracking is crucial, right, in marketing and even nowadays in influencer marketing. So how do you monitor your your influencer marketing campaigns, and also what are some of the most important and crucial metrics that you would consider for any type of B2B influencer marketing campaign?
Sure. So it does depend on if it's a brand awareness campaign or if it's a demand campaign. Some of those metrics bleed too. But brand awareness, obviously, you're going to look at things like impressions and reach and engagement. And the one thing that I don't think brands do often enough is measure the brand reach and engagement during an influencer campaign, as well as the reach and engagement of their influencers. And what I mean by that is the brand's doing it correctly, they're also going to share those assets, whether that's a blog post, that's video, what podcast, whatever it is. Well, you should know if what you shared drove on behalf of this campaign drove what engagement, as well as, just as importantly, of course, as what happened with your influencers that you worked with. So that's always important. I then also always look at website traffic because that's the piece that people don't talk about enough, I think. It's always impression, number of followers, and how much are they engaged. My take is if you're pushing them to the website, which you should, even if that's just to look at a blog post, your website should take over at that point, right? Because you're driving into the website. If your website's set up properly, you'll be able to see if they move around on the website. Do they click on other assets that maybe are embedded in that landing page or that blog post or things of that nature? So that's how we look at all of those numbers. And for example, we just launched a campaign last week as we record this. I just have to think of the day. It was a week or a week and a half ago. But within the first few days of the campaign launching, the blog post that was used as the landing page essentially was one of the top 5 pages on the entire website. And that includes the home page.
Yeah.
Which for any company will always be the number one page. So we look at that. When you look at paid campaigns, if you're paying an influencer, the other metric that I always use is CPE, so cost per engagement. And the reason why that's so important to me is influencer pricing is wild. There's literally no basis for it, right? Yep. I can charge $5,000 for 5 posts and 10 videos, and you might charge $1,000 for 20 videos and 2 posts. Like, the numbers are totally rampant. There is literally no basis for it. And so that's the way that you can control that. Is CPE allows you to say, I paid this to this person, this is how many engagements I got. I paid this to this person, this is how many engagements. So then you have a baseline. It's all equal at that point. And you can start to determine, for my next campaign, who do I want to use?
Absolutely. You can easily do it like, I guess, Excel file, just put it your CPE. That is your baseline. You take all the other things, you divide it by that. Is it in my range? Is too off? Is too like, too high?
Yep.
Absolutely. That is a good one. And also to getting back on what you were saying before about also the website. Also something that we noticed it is that what we sometimes, suggest to certain clients in the B2B is to pose anything else, or at least trying to not to do too many things, and run maybe a campaign for a couple of weeks
Yeah.
and see the spike in branded searches on Google search.
Yep.
And that is also something that we notice, that many people go on social media and then they do not necessarily click on the link, or they go to another device. Nowadays with cookies like, it's a bit more chaotic to understand what is happening, right? But if they see a spike, empirically speaking, it can be like, well, if we haven't done any other campaigns in that time, and it's only influencers, you can attribute that there is a lot of interest in your brand name
Yeah.
that actually help you a lot for SEO purpose, right? Because Google are going to see that many people search for your brand name. That is really good, right? Really good for your identity and authority in the space. They click on the website, they check more. So,
Yep.
that is also, I think, something quite powerful to look at. I don't know if you ever
Absolutely. It
like
kind of
that.
goes to brand affinity, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the more depend on the type of campaign you're running from an influencer perspective, the more into those secondary and tertiary audiences you're getting, right? Because in an influencer shares something and then their audience sees it, really likes it, shares it, and you're getting into those audiences, the more, to your point, that recall is going to start to happen, that people are, I saw that really cool thing from this brand, but I didn't have time to click on it.
Yeah,
Let me go search for it again.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll be seeing that all, like, again, B2C, like, tapping on an Instagram, then you go there, but then you like, Instagram still, for example, missing when it comes to, and even LinkedIn, like, it's difficult to see, for example, reviews, right, of
Yep.
something on social media. So you still have to go and Google it. Pretty sure that social media are gonna include more reviews later on, because they have to, right? They have to, like, TikTok and others are trying to beat Google when it comes to search engine, and I'm most probably they're going to also include the reviews to have everything in one place. But until now, you still Google the name of a product, of a service, of a company, right? To have a sense of their reputation, for example, right?
Sure.
And so on. And is there any other, I don't know, like, if you want to share with us any other case studies that you work on, or any other metrics that you think might be quite important to know while running a B2B campaign?
Yeah. So I think an easily replicable case study. Some of the other stuff we've worked on costs a large investment, so
Yeah.
that's not something applicable in the sense that anyone could do it. But one of the most effective things that we do are lists. Top 25 this, 50 execs that. And they are free to run. They're heavily resourced. They're going to drain your team, and so I say that up front. They can suck to put together, but because of the manual research, all of that. But if you think about how you can pull that apart and how you can integrate it, so for example, we'll run a top list of some kind. We'll have creative done. So let's say we just ran a 25 sales executives to learn from in 2023, right? We had 25 individual cards made. So when I did my outreach, each influencer got their own social card that they could promote, right? To say on LinkedIn, I've been recognized by demand base, so on and so forth. We'll wait a week or two. We go back out to them and say, congrats again on being named to our list. Would you like to contribute to an ebook we're putting together?
Mm-hmm.
And it addresses this question. That question is something that's topical to a focus area for us in that quarter or that year. They'll provide us the responses, right? Maybe 50% of those people or something will typically get back to us with responses. We'll take those, we'll develop an ebook out of it, Then we'll develop quote cards, social quote cards to send back out to them when that ebook launches. So now they're able to go back out and say, Demand Base asked me my thoughts on this, and here's my quote. And oh, by the way, here's a link to the ebook. So now, once again, it's like a phase two. Now we've, in a way, hooked them and built that relationship. So we will offer them to co create content. Do they want to post on our blog? Do they want to be on our podcast? Do they want to shoot an interview for our video service? However we can be of help. Do they want to join? They meet the ICP for our community. Do they want to be part of our community? We've just now, by helping them and recognizing them, we developed almost instantly a longer term relationship with them.
And I know that works well because we do the same for our own reports. We have done one for the creator economy, one for social commerce. We do exactly the same. We go out, we ask to expert in the area, about that topic for a quote. Then we give them their social cards. They can put it on LinkedIn, and works so well. Again, as you said, time consuming. So people have to be ready to be it's really manual work. You have to do your research and your homework. It's a lot of work. It's not just AI type of thing, give me 10 quotes, from experts. It's much more. But we also realize how impactful it is to spend more time on those little pieces of the puzzle. And so I'm 100% with you. I know for sure that works well. So I'm glad also that you're doing the same, because it brings just so much more right to the table. So,
and one of the things that I found with that too, that when we started to do it really kind of in earnest last year, one of the things that I didn't expect, but I love to see, and it actually makes me happier than any of the kind of benefit of work, is people instantly, within minutes of receiving the email, update their LinkedIn profiles and that they've been named this top 2,500, whatever that number is, list by Demand Base. I've had managers reach out to me and that I've known that said, hey, listen, this person just got the email from you and you've made her day, her week, his, month, because he was really down, things like that. I've had people email me and say, listen, I've had a fear that this wasn't a right role for me, or I was having a really bad day, and just as I was walking away from my laptop, your email came in and made my week. Like these really heartfelt messages that you don't realize that, some people look at it as a listicle, but when it's done in earnest with that manual research, you don't realize the impact that it's potentially having on that person and that person's career.
I love it. We started from the idea B2B, can be boring, to you can actually change the day that making their day in their week. So I love the message and behind that. Again, as we said at the beginning, B2B, it's actually people behind a company, again, with their feelings, with their things happening in their life. So if you are able to give them some sort of also excitement because of their achievements, I can see why, right? They are happy about it. So really good job on that. Again, not too many people spend enough time to really focus right on this aspect of life. And to start wrapping up, we cover many things today, but is there anything that you are either excited about lately or something that I didn't ask you today that you would like to talk about?
I think that, as I've mentioned, we run our own private Slack community. I think that private communities certainly are the way that we'll continue to have conversations with one another. It was something that we saw really shoot up into the right during COVID, when we couldn't get together, when we couldn't gather physically. And now they're taking off, whether they're on Slack, they're browser-based, Discord, you have Circle, you have several different platforms Slack being among the most popular, Slack and Discord, but they will be something that's more impactful into people's lives, people's careers, because it's where you can get to spend time with others that kind of look like you, right? If you're in MOPS, there's MoPros, which is a private community just for marketing and operations folks, type of thing. If you're in sales, there's sales focused ones. So I do think private communities certainly are something that we'll continue to see. And then, the debate with TikTok will continue.
Yeah.
So there's the ongoing legalities around TikTok. And I just don't think that those can be ignored right now. You have federal government here in the U.S., you have states banning it from their devices, and when some of the states that ban it, that then affects the colleges, the state universities, but yet it's this monster of a social network, right? So it'll be interesting over probably this year, the course of 2023, and maybe even into 2024, to just see what happens with all of that, where it shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, we have been seeing like happening during the Trump era. Nothing really that happened. Now it's back. So it's definitely like a really like weird time for overall. I would say social media, for TikTok more, but overall we're seeing a lot of things
Yeah.
happening every single day. So
Well, Twitter's a dumpster fire. I mean.
Yeah, I don't know like what is happening this year, to be honest, to tech, right? It's a bit of a mess, but yeah, let's see what happens there. Justin, thank you so much for joining me. I can see that you are really passionate about this and really technical when it comes to like B2B influencer marketing tracking. I love to hear that, because I'm the first one that want to share that it's influencer marketing, even in the B2B, especially nowadays, can be trackable. You can analyze things, but on top of that, you have to put those like human touches that you're doing, because you cannot just work on numbers and metrics, right?
Yep.
You need that extra level there. So again, thank you so much for sharing that with me today.
Thank you.
This was another episode of the Influence Factor by the Influencer Marketing Factory, and I'll see you next week.